My name is Charles Copeland, and I will be teaching you today about the pros and cons of inflation. I'm going to start out with giving you the meaning and how inflation is used. Inflation is the overall general upward price movement of goods and services in an economy. Inflation is often caused by an increase in supply of money. Inflation is also measured by the CPI, or Consumer Price Index, and Producer Price Index. Now we'll talk about the pros of inflation. While growth in the money supply causes prices to rise in the long run, most economists believe that in the short run, an increase in the money supply can lower interest rates. That's why the Federal Reserve increases the money supply when it decides to lower its interest rate target. Interest rates are lowered to stimulate demand for goods and services. Purchasing a new car or a washing machine is more affordable when interest rates are low. And the hope is that by stimulating demand for goods and services, firms will hire more workers and unemployment will fail. Faster inflation is typically the consequence of prosperity, not the cause of it. But a moderate and predictable upward drift to prices is generally thought to be advantageous. By being predictable, it lends some certainty to making long-term commitments, which is good for investment and productivity growth. And by being moderate, it makes policymakers more confident that they can give the economy a boost by lowering interest rates when the economy needs it. However, polls have always shown that inflation makes people feel uncomfortable even if their own incomes are rising faster than prices. All things considered, monetary policy wonk thinks a good target of moderate and predictable inflation is between 2 and 4% per year. The cons of inflation. When inflation is relatively low, it isn't very harmful so long as it is relatively predictable. That is, if I know that inflation is going to be 4%, then as an employer I can factor that into a cost of living allowance or for my workers. As a banker, I can factor that into the interest rates. However, if the inflation is unpredictable, it makes it difficult to plan for the future. When the inflation rate is much higher, even if it is predictable, it becomes harmful because it makes it very expensive to hold money. Inflation harms the most those who cannot successfully bargain for wage increases to keep pace with prices. These are typically the least organized, least skilled, and the least connected people. This is another of the popular myths associated with inflation, that when prices rise faster than wages, inflation is to blame. What's more likely to be the case for most people in today's economy is that prices are rising faster than wages because employee bargaining power has been so eroded by high unemployment. Fear of job loss makes employees timid. Unanticipated inflation also harms rentiers, bondholders whose income is fixed in money terms. Anticipated inflation is built into decisions to invest in fixed income securities. When actual inflation turns out to be more than expected, bondholders take a loss because they get back dollars that are less valuable than the dollars that they expected to get. But bondholders can also reap a windfall when inflation turns out to be less than expected. And that is my lesson today on the pros and cons of inflation.